1985. Against the odds, on with 10 men, Norman Whiteside has done it again. 1995. Between two double-winning seasons for United, Paul Rideout wins Joe Royle a trophy at Everton. Alex Ferguson takes revenge by offloading an increasingly knackered Andre Kanchelskis. 2005. Duncan Ferguson scores the only goal against 9 Man United without the help of Peter Willis. Toffees qualify for the Champions League at Liverpool's expense. Something happens for Liverpool to make up for it some weeks later, but sadly that's erased from human consciousness and never again mentioned. In 2015, no one died. But now it's 2025. The Moyes is back in town. Everton are big spenders. And morale at their new home, the unmemorable Solicitor Neyman Son Stadium, is, well, let's ask our guest instead. Paul, Roy and me are joined by Rob, Everton's historian, a kind of like an Everton version of Roy. What is the morale like at the stadium whose name I keep forgetting?
At the Hill Dickinson. Morale is moderate, I think. When the season got underway, a few good performances, confidence goes sky high, and then there's been a bit of a reality check. But then we had a win the other week against Fulham, and we're sort of probably back on an even keel. So cautious optimism. I think the more pragmatic supporters, probably like myself, have sort of realised that this isn't a quick fix. After sort of probably 5 years in the doldrums, we're not going to turn things around in one season. So in a better place than we were.
Wasn't there, like post Dyche?
Yeah, well, Moyes, when David Moyes came in, his return, he certainly steadied the ship when we were not necessarily facing relegation in the face, but we were, we really were struggling under Sean Dyche. So, a positive end to last season. Some acquisitions, a bit of money spent really for the first time in several years, but it's very apparent that we're still a good number of pieces short of a complete jigsaw. But better than we were 12 months ago, certainly better than we were 3 years ago.
We try not to do a lot of football, so I won't dwell on it too much. But you spent about 114 million, I think, Everton. Recouped about 10% of that. Dibbling and Grealish really caught the eye for us outsiders. What about those other big signings? Who's looked good and bad so far?
Kiernan Dewsbury Hall has come in from Chelsea.
That was a big one.
Yeah, I like the look of him. Full of energy. Just like his attitude. I like the cut of his jib. He's not been great in every game, but he's certainly brought something to the midfield. We've brought, fairly young French striker called Tiano Barry, and he's found it tough. It's not an easy gig being Everton's centre forward. You tend to be quite isolated, doing a lot of work on your own, and especially if you're coming into the British game from other leagues, it's not an easy thing. So he's found it tough. But there were some glimpses from him in the past game or two that he has got something to offer. As you say, Grealish catches the eye as a great loan signing, and he's certainly just given us the ability to hold on to the ball, something that really Everton have treated like a hot potato for much of the past 5 years. So it's great to actually see one or two players comfortable on the ball, and obviously Iliman Ndiaye, who's in his second season with us, is really lighting up the place on occasion. A real talent who we will unfortunately probably struggle to keep hold of, but such is the way of the pecking order in football. But we're enjoying him while we have him.
Yeah, it could be another Onana situation. All right then, listen. So we've dealt with the obvious corruption of '95 and '05. Roy, you think there was something fishy about a game in 1957 you went to in your skiffle days?
I know. I'm not sure if you've come across it in your research, Rob, but it was October 1956, and United undefeated the first 14 games in the season, undefeated in the last 14 games of the previous season when they won the title, first title under the Busby Babes. 28 games, and I think the record then was 29. And we're playing Everton at home, and Everton put third from bottom. United clear top, won it again that season. And they brought Albert Dunlop, 18 years of age, in for his debut. So it's a sure thing. United went 1-0 up. And little old me stood there in the paddock, and we get beat 5-2. Now, the thing that's not annoyed me, but I've tried to ask the question to people who are involved over 70 years. Everton had another debutant that day called Jimmy Gould. Now, for those of us old enough to know about this, about 3 or 4 years later, Jimmy Gould was the absolute ringleader of the match-fixing sensation that rocked football. He was the man who got everyone else in all the divisions to throw games. 2 weeks before the Everton game in 1956, I'd been to United watching them play Charlton Athletic, Bobby Charlton's debut, and Jimmy Gould played his last game for Charlton Athletic that day. 2 weeks after, he rocks up at Old Trafford again, playing for Everton, making his debut. Now, everyone's on about 17 quid a week, whoever you are. And I'm thinking, bloody hell. But how many does it take to throw a match? I mean, the goalie's got to be involved, I assume, and he was my hero, Ray Wood. But, I mean, I don't know. But how the heck could Everton beat them 5-2? And it was incredible. I never got over it.
Is it well known right down your way, Rob, that was fixed?
I'm fully aware of Jimmy Gould and what went on, the scandal in the early 60s, but that's the first time I've heard of that theory, and fair play to you, Roy, for carrying that around for nearly 7 decades.
Yeah.
There's breaking news, so I'm going to look into that further. Could it be that you just had an off day?
Well, yeah, it was just with him playing, for his last game for Charlton 2 weeks before. I can see him in the bar after, hey lads, I'm going to Everton, I'll be here back in a fortnight. What do you reckon?
It's absolutely frightening to think how many more trophies United would have had if it wasn't for the vice-like grip that Merseyside has on corruption, isn't it? But that 95 Cup win, though, that was a highlight of a rough decade for Everton, wasn't it? And hold on a minute, I'll get to you in a minute on that, Rob. I do want to ask you something about it. But, Paul, it ruined your nana's wedding.
It didn't really ruin my nana's wedding so much as it ruined my experience at wedding.
Sorry, say that again. I was messing about because your mic's so terrible and I accidentally muted you. What happened?
I said it didn't really ruin my nana's experience of a wedding so much. It ruined my experience of the afternoon. Because obviously, 95 was back in the days when you could tape the match if you weren't able to see it. So I was with my dad and we were like, we'll listen to it. So we won't find out the score, which was doable in the non-smartphone era. And then I think the chef at the wedding was an Everton fan, and we heard a big scream go up, and then that's when we knew that the day was ruined, really. But my other main memory of United Everton, correct me if I'm wrong, Rob, but there was a period on the late early noughties where Everton would pretty much roll over at Old Trafford for a good number of years. I remember I think United won 3-0 once, and I remember being in the South Stand with my dad and my granddad, and Gary Pallister was stood there, and Everton brought on a young 15, 16-year-old lad. And I think he ran it on, obviously, the size difference between him and Gary Pallister. And someone in the crowd shouted, "Have a lie down, Pally." And Gary Pallister was laughing, so we were all laughing. And it turned out to be Franny Jeffers.
Franny Jeffers, yeah, he was 16 at the time. Yeah, that was his debut. Yeah.
Who went on to have a good career, but yeah, no, you didn't need him in 95. You had Paul Rideout, didn't you? He was enough to ruin the day.
I'm glad I remembered that right, because I forgot to double check it. It was him who headed it. What did you do in response to that then? Did you take a week off for it, set some fireworks off, anything like that, Rob?
Don't all label us that way. No, very happy though. I was living away at the time, so got over from abroad back to London for that. Great day, and sort of payback for a decade earlier. One of the 85 was one of the saddest days. I went through that period, probably that you've had it at times with United, where you think you're going to win everything or win every match. And in that 84-85 season, Everton were on for the treble, and you just felt pretty confident. And then obviously that brilliant goal from Norman in extra time. That was one of the hardest, toughest defeats I've ever felt. So 95 was a wonderful, nice surprise payback, because clearly we were the underdogs in that season. Horrible
day out. But a decade earlier, though, when I remember Everton being a great side, and I can still almost name, that kind of typical 11 that Kendall was playing and everything. Some really fine players. Going back a bit earlier, Roy, in your day, tell me about '63, because I think United were just starting to come good again, and Everton were champions.
Yeah, and of course Dennis had a year with us, but around that time there was an Evertonian, Alec Young. I tell you, even though a United fan, he was an incredible footballer. Played centre forward, and he wasn't that tall, 5'8", something like that, but a brilliant footballer. And Roy Vernon who would probably play with a fag in his mouth and be really nonchalant and score goals and goals. They were a tremendous side. And of course, going back to that match fixing very quickly, Tony Kay was one of the. Sorry,
Won't let it go.
but he was one of the.
Let it go, Roy.
So the Charity Shield in '63, it goes along to Goodison. We got stuff 4-0, and Busby we'd just won the cup. And that was Johnny Giles' last ever game for United. And the week after Busby made a few changes, he brought Ian Moyer in, he brought David Sadler in, Dave Chisnell, he brought Harry Gregg back in goal instead of Gaskell. We played Everton 2 weeks after in the league champions, and we won 5-1 at Old Trafford. And Law, he'd been with us a year then in Charlton. 2 weeks after that game, Georgie Best made his debut. And that was really, the cup win was really the impetus of United's 6 years really in the 60s, where they were unbelievable. And as Georgie Best said to me one famous night when I was comparing him, he said, the first 5 years of my life from 63 to 68 were absolutely unbelievable, and the next 5 years of my life should have been unforgettable. And he said they were, but for the wrong reasons, because we wouldn't sign any players. And that 60s was, it was like the 26 years of Alec Ferguson, but multiplied 4 times. But yeah, it was great. I had some fabulous times. I remember being at Everton in 60. It's absolutely peed it down, and I'm stood there, and we're 5-0 down at half time. We pulled a goal back in the second half and beat Real Madrid the following Wednesday in a friendly. It was just unbelievable times. Yeah, Everton is I must ask you though, Rob. I was on Law's debut, August 62. Sorry, second game for United, August 62, first away game. And there was 72,000 on, to me, the same Goodison Road, which you just finished playing 6 months ago. I'm thinking, how could that ground hold 72,000 and then be limited to 40,000? Because it's virtually the same ground, wasn't it?
Yeah, same footprint. Obviously changed the stands a little bit, but yeah, it does. I think the record attendance was 78,000 just after the war, and you just think, how the hell did people get in there and get out safely? It's amazing, that post-war boom of attendances. Yeah,
I'm sure the other lads,
weren't they, and the rationing was still going on.
I'm sure the other lads will mention, but getting out of Goodison was a rum do, especially when we played Liverpool in semi-finals. That little street up where the players' entrance, well done lads, see you, all the best at Wembley. I don't remember anyone shouting that night. Bleeding hell. It was a bit.
I wouldn't remember it anyway, but yeah, the 79 semi especially. Rob, what are your apart from the obvious one in 95 final, what would be your best memories against United?
Well, probably again, if you go to the 84-85 season, one of the finest Everton performances I've seen was when we beat United 5-0 at Goodison.
Thanks, Andrew.
It was around the same time we beat Liverpool at Anfield to sort of break that hoodoo, and it was clear that this was a team that was really going to challenge for something. Just blew United away that day, and then we played United in the League Cup, Milk Cup I think it was back then, about 3 days later. So we went to that, and I remember my dad for some reason rather than parking near Old Trafford, I think we parked in Trafford Park, and I had the longest walk ever to a football match I've ever seen. But it was worth it because we wasn't a great match, but we beat United 2-1 thanks to a John Gidman own goal, ironically, a sort of former Everton full-back. So yeah, those are great memories. More recently, we beat United 4-0 at Goodison. I think 2019 under Marco Silva, and again that was one of those false dawns where we thought, we're going somewhere, and then 6 months later Silva was sacked. So yeah, we've had some results, but as you referred to, there's so many times in the past couple of decades where we've gone to Old Trafford and just it's been like a gimme, hasn't it? It's been 3-0, 4-0 nailed on. It's and as happened last season, in fact, at Old Trafford. So some good memories, but many of them quite a long time ago, sadly for me.
We'll get to it. Anyone who wants to get in touch, please do. Cream of Manchester, 1878@gmail.com. And you can find us and bother us on all the socials. It was via social media we found out in the last 24 hours about the death of Manny, the bass player in more than one great band. A lad you'd see at United as well as gigs around Manchester. I first met him at the Inter away game in '99. Paul, you wrote his original obituary for the BBC.
Yeah, there was word a few years back he wasn't too good, but I think he seemed to make a recovery because he was due to do a speaking tour. He only announced recently he was going to do a speaking tour, but yeah, I mean, what a band! I mean, Stone Roses' biggest sort of cultural moment was in Spike Island, obviously. She's in Widnes, where I'm from originally, on the Widnes Warrington kind of border. Or as Rob and the Everton fans might call us, woolly-backs. Yes. But, I mean, Manny was obviously a big red as well. The club put out on their social media accounts today talking about what a great guy he was, lifelong red. And, yeah, so, I mean, the Spike Island gig probably for me would have been the only big famous gig that I would have been able to walk home from. But unfortunately, I wasn't a baggy raver at 6 years old. I don't know if anyone else was there. But yeah, I remember seeing him at, I had a band and we played at a festival near Macclesfield, and I remember spotting him and I was like, right, we'll go and bother him with the demo. And I come and grabbed him, and he had his sunglasses on, and I was like, Manny, I have to ask you from being from around Widnes Way, I was like, what was Spike Island like? And I remember he pulled up his shades, and with a big smile on his face, he just went, don't talk to me about Halton Borough Council. And then just gladly, because those Stone Roses, they always tried to make big events of those gigs rather than being normal gigs, and I think they had quite a lot of issues. They obviously played at like Blackpool Empress Ballroom and Spike Island as well, so there were a few issues. But he came across such a nice guy, didn't he? And when obviously on Monday night when United host Everton, what do United always come out to these days? This is the one. You'll hear Manny's bass notes ringing out around the stadium, and I'm sure everyone will have a moment to think about him.
Yeah, indeed. He'd be a well-respected Liverpool way as well, wouldn't he, Rob?
Yeah, I mean, you always talk about this rivalry between Manchester and Merseyside, but I think musically there's a lot of admiration from both sides. I love the Stone Roses. Beatles and the Stone Roses are my touchstones, really, probably musically. And yeah, I was just gutted and shocked when I heard the news. I've been listening to him on the recent couple of podcast appearances, and he sounded good form, getting over the very sad death of his wife a couple of years ago, and looking forward to going on this sort of speaking tour next year. And he just sounded just such a funny guy to listen to, as well as a quarter of that that fabulous band he made them. To me, he just completed that band when he joined, and he was just the gel that brought those some different personalities together. So yeah, I'm sure if there's any kind of remembrance for him at the game on Monday night, I'm sure Everton fans will fully respect that.
Yeah.
How many band members can be known by one name only, other than singers? I can think of maybe Ringo
and Rennie.
Yeah, Bono, Ringo, Rennie. Not many. Yeah,
The Edge.
Not many.
That's two, but
Yeah.
probably get away with the Edge.
It's young twins have lost both their parents, as you mentioned there, in a short space of time. So our thoughts with them and all the family. And this episode is reaching its own vanishing point. We should get towards the business end of it. And it sounds obvious, but both sides really need to win this game for pretty different reasons. Like a familiar sort of position of 13th, reasonably like early in the season, Rob. But it'll start being a bit fidgety, won't it? Or do you not count that as would a draw at Old Trafford be a good result?
Oh yeah, I think a draw would be a very good result. As I say, we got a win at home the other week, which probably just helped settle a few nerves. So I think a point, we'd take a point, and I suspect David Moyes would take a point. One accusation from David Moyes' first spell at Everton was that he very rarely won away at the big six, if you want to call it that. So as soon as he moved on from United, of course, Roberto Martinez came in and we beat United 1-0. So Moyes is probably overdue winning away at one of the big clubs, if you want to call it that. I can't personally see it. I think if I was a betting man, I'd go for a 1-1 draw.
Another draw would be horrible for United, but a defeat would be, honestly,
well, you say that. I wish we played United like 5 weeks ago or something, when you did seem to be under the cosh. You seem to have turn things around to a degree. It's all relative.
Yeah, let's see if it's clicking. Well, to finish off, Goodison was my first ever away. Loved it. Are we missing it yet? I mean, most Everton fans I've spoken to were more excited than, let's say, most fans of other clubs who've had to go into a shiny new stadium.
I think the thing is, we've seen the new ground going up on the waterfront, and it has looked amazing. You know, it's not just an identikit box, which we were threatened with moving to in Kirby. There were plans, and that just looked awful.
I was at the meeting for that.
Okay, well there you go. So, and that's nothing against Kirby. It's just it was like attached to basically a supermarket development that just wasn't good. This is an iconic location. The stadium looks great. So, and I think most people would recognise that if the club was to move on, they had to get somewhere bigger, modern, that could bring in more revenues. And the great thing is, we found out a week before the end of last season that Goodison wasn't going to go full, at the hands of the wrecking ball. So it lives on as the home to the women's team. So it's almost the best of both worlds for us. Still adjusting. Getting to and from the ground isn't the easiest, because there's one way in, one way out, because it's on the waterfront. But certainly the architect and the builder's done a great job. Atmosphere-wise, it's the best of the modern era generation of stadiums that I've been to.
Yeah, keeping the old ground is something United fans are very much hoping can come out.
It's something you're facing into in these coming years, isn't it?
Big cause of rancour. Any other business, gents?
No, there's a cracking story of Paddy Everett and David Moyes yesterday. Did you see it? Where it's in his book, actually, that they knew something was going to be wrong. They were playing a pre-season game in Australia, and Moyes said, right, let's all go for a run on Bondi Beach. And they said, no, we're Manchester United. No, come on, man. And of course they all went for a run on Bondi Beach, and every man and his dog wanted to see United, and all security guards suddenly went absolutely apeshit.
Has that come out? So I got told that by somebody who I was sworn to secrecy about 10 years ago, that story. And
yeah, it's in his boot.
He just said, it'll be fine. I brought the lads here before. And he said, and he wasn't told. There's an amazing shot on someone's phone who used to work for United who showed it me. And it's just Rio Ferdinand just trying to do sit-ups, and they're kind of being mobbed. And they were trying to warn him. He said, it's not going to be like it. But I remember doing a shift for MUTV on that tour, and I remember his face walking into the press room because of the amount of press United had on a pre-season, and he just kind of was just taken aback by it. And I think that was a bit of an adjustment for him. Bless him. Anyway, on that subject, we are all off to karaoke now, because Roy has promised to lead us in a rendition of Moyes, I'm looking for a good time. It promises to be a lot of fun, mind the trams.